We can also have a defective patient. A defective patient is one who can't effectively communicate their symptoms for a variety of reasons, and this can be a matter of degree. I mean, it could be an absolute inability in the case of mental impairment, or it could just be someone who's just not as in tune with their bodies as others and just isn't a great communicator, and those people tend to need to do more journaling and need to be prodded a lot more to figure out how it is they're actually feeling so they can communicate that to the person who's prescribing the remedy. And sometimes a case can be defective in that, whether it's a patient or the disease or just the information you're getting, you're just not, you've taken a complete case, but there's just really not in it. The patient's told you everything they can, and the symptoms that you have just don't really clearly fit a remedy, or there's just nothing really all that interesting there. There's just nothing really very characteristic. And so in those cases, sometimes it just takes a while. It can take months or even years of treatment before some new symptom develops so you have some information to go on to make a prescription. So it's not always easy. Another point just to bring up is the difference, a lot of people ask this, between combination remedies versus single remedies. So in pure or classical homeopathy, the idea is we try to prescribe one remedy at a time, not in combination with other remedies. And my take on this, there's a lot of opinions on it. I would say that I would much rather use a combination remedy than a conventional over-the-counter medication. I mean, they're not really seriously harmful to the body, although some purists in homeopathy will talk about the fact that you're kind of messing up the vital force if you start giving it so many remedies at once. You're confusing the disease picture, which you can be doing. But if it's a simple cold, for example, common cold, and there's not really a remedy that seems appropriate to give, if there's not really a great characteristic symptoms, you're not really sure. The combination remedies tend to be several remedies put together at very low potency, and giving that may just palliate a little bit and get the person through the cold a little easier, and there's really not anything horribly wrong with that if you can't find one remedy that rises to the top. The analogy I use here is using tear gas versus using a sniper to try to take out a bad guy, let's say. So, the combination remedy is more like tear gas. It's not going to kill anyone, it's not going to be horribly specific, but it will at least potentially help what could be an otherwise violent situation. Whereas a sniper is going to go in with one bullet, it's going to take out the bad guy. So that's how the remedies work too. If you get one well-chosen remedy with a high enough potency, it's going to be more curative. Where these combination remedies are more often than not just sort of mildly palliative. It's a lot easier to use combination remedies because you're kind of using them like conventional medicine would have you treat, which is, you have a set of symptoms, here's the remedy that's going to work. If you have a cold, here's the remedy. If there's a sore throat, remedy. There's and so they combine all these remedies that are very commonly used for sore throat or for stuffy nose, and they put them together into one thing. So they're easy to use, and they may help to some degree. It's a little bit hit or miss, and you're not going to see like that really amazing response. And also in the case of again, in the case of a defective disease, it might be something you might want to consider. The next point I want to talk about briefly is the decline of homeopathy, which unfortunately is, as much as we'd like to think otherwise, is happening in most parts of the world. With the exception of countries like India and South America and Mexico, there really has been a huge decline of homeopathy. There was a resurgence for a while in somewhat recent modern history, but 100, 200 years ago, the majority, or a huge, at least close to 50% of the medical schools in the United States were homeopathic colleges. It gained tremendous popularity because of its effectiveness. And then one of the things that led to its decline was was antibiotics, and it just became for a lot of these diseases that homeopathy was seeing great results with, the antibiotics saw close to as good results with taking a lot less time, a lot less guesswork. You know, it was just easier to prescribe. They didn't know at the time about drug-resistant strains and all the problems that we're seeing with antibiotics now. But there's always been, I think, it's kind of human nature to be fascinated with and sort of gravitate towards the new, newer is better, more modern, or anything that's higher tech or more expensive tends to be better. So there's been kind of a movement that way, and today we just live in a society that values instant gratification. So, when you're comparing calling up your doctor who you have a good relationship with, he prescribes an antibiotic over the phone without even speaking to you, you take it and you start feeling better within a few days, as opposed to coming into your homeopath, talking for an hour, trying a remedy, hopefully it works, maybe it doesn't, you have to call back again. The second time around it works great, but when you compare that to the antibiotic, for a lot of people with busy lives, they just rather do that. So there's an instant short-term gain, but there's a long-term price you pay for that. But we're not so concerned with the long-term in our culture, especially American culture compared to other cultures. So that has a lot to do with it. There's education issues. It's a numbers issue. A lot of people just aren't familiar with homeopathy. There's not a lot of homeopathic colleges right now. In terms of funding, research studies and things like that, we don't have. It's not a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not nearly as big as the pharmaceutical industry, which funds the research for the drugs that they make. So, money and politics obviously plays a big role as well. There are, though, in certain circles, we're seeing some really well-trained homeopaths that are trying to spread the word and improve the profession, and so in these circles we are seeing great results and a rise in some small circles, and hopefully that will continue, and we will start to see a resurgence again. So, any questions on anything we've talked about so far?